Hello, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm recording on August 8th. I had a problem with the recording last episode, so unfortunately that had to be deleted because of the audio problem. There was too much static in the background. But thank you for joining. Greatly appreciate if you share the links, ask your social media to follow me, and help support the work that I do by being a paid member to my Patreon channel or my Substack channel. All these videos are for free. I try to inform the public on how to manage their finances and also help to improve their health and wellness and any scientific discoveries that may be happening or important news that's happening within the biological field. I try to give you my perspective. So please help support the work that I do by being a paid member to my Patreon channel. And again, you can follow me on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble, TikTok, GETTR, X, Substack, lots of ways to follow my work. You can also follow me usually in the morning during the weekday live. You can follow me on Rumble, YouTube, and my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. We're going to play two topics today. One's about AI in the bubble. The other is the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I'm concerned about the Strait for a few reasons. One, it doesn't seem that we're going to actually overthrow the IRGC or destroy the theocratic regime of Iran. So we're kicking the can down the road for another president down the road to trying to have to solve the problem. We're moving into this curse epoch that starts on 9/11/2026. I've mentioned it multiple times. The reason why the curse starts is that Rosh Hashanah and the Sabbath are going to coincide. The shofar's not blown, can't silence the prosecutor or Satan or Satan. And because of that, the world will have a tumultuous time period. You have to remember the year that October 7th happened was also a year where the Rosh Hashanah and the Sabbath coincided. So when these types of events happen, there's a curse that happens to a group of people, the world at large. And I think that because there's going to be 2 consecutive years of this, so this problem is going to start September 11th, 2026, and not end until around October of 2028. So buckle up. I think there are some problems that are starting to arise. You can kind of see it emerging. Our munitions are depleted. Our inability to solve the problem in Iran. The maritime laws of freedom of navigation are now in question. The war in Europe. What's going on with Putin? Is Putin going to attack a NATO nation? Will that activate the Article 5? Does the United States have enough capacity to be able to do this two-front war? Rumblings are happening in the news that General Kane wants to find an off-ramp with the war in Iran. We're in danger here. That's just in the military. What about with China? Can we really support or defend Taiwan? Probably not. So future wars that are on the horizon, or potential future wars that are on the horizon, we don't have the capacity. Our economic system is starting to look like we may be going to go into a tumultuous time, especially with the overinvestment of AI. And we're over 100% of our GDP in debt. There's rumblings of instability in the yen market, the Japanese yen. Economic turmoil is starting to emerge. Geopolitical turmoil is starting to emerge. With El Nino, with the droughts in some areas and the precipitation in others, you have this potential food crisis that could happen, where the crop yields will not be as plentiful as what they need to be. So agriculture may be affected. Then you're hearing a lot of things that are happening with cyclospora and legionnaires and Ebola and all this stuff that's happening. So there may be a pathogenic emergence that's taking place too. Economic, military, climate, biological problems. These are a series of plagues, very similar to what happened in the Bible. It's not a one-for-one map. It's not going to be a copy paste. It's a rhyme that's happening. History rhymes, doesn't repeat. So I think that we're going into dangerous time periods. Now that's just with this strait here weakening us to being able to absorb all these other shocks. See, too many people are focused on a silo thinking. This is the reason why polymaths are far superior than experts in a particular domain. The polymaths can see the connections between the different silos. These silo thinkers, they are so focused on their particular discipline, they can't see the forest through the trees. And there's an emergent property that's taking place with all of these different silos. Trump has changed things so much that if you look at any individual silo, people would say the United States can weather the storm. But when you look at all of the silos together, there's a compounding effect, and we are going through dangerous times. And because Trump didn't finish the job in Iran, there will be a curse coming on the United States. He has until September 11th, 2026, before sundown, to get the job done, or the curse is coming. That's my whole thesis. And I've been saying this for over a year. So please help support the work that I do by following. Make sure you click the links, subscribe, get the notifications, and help me reach a larger audience, because no one else is talking about this. I am 100% right on this. People need to pay attention here. We are in danger. Okay, with that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer to help support the work that I do and to help support your health and wellness. These are supplements that I take regularly to help to slow down the aging process. I'm in my mid-50s. I'm in pretty good shape. And you can also get healthy by following my lead. It's a very simple concept. Keep the free radicals down, keep the inflammation down, boost up your energy levels. Zeolite is a way to detoxify your body, remove heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue. It will bind to these toxins and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. Very simple. 3 small drops underneath your tongue daily, drink filtered water. And this is the type of zeolite that you can take every day. And C60, you can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and avocado oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Take a teaspoon a day every day. This is something that I've been doing for over 10 years. What this will do is soak up those free radicals, about 1,000 times more potent than vitamin C. By soaking up those free radicals, you're going to help with your immune system, your endocrine system, help with your cardiovascular system, help with brain function. Your organ systems will perform better. Now, with C60, it's going to soak up those free radicals at the cellular level and in the extracellular matrix. The mitochondria will be healthier. There's less stress in the tissue and in the cell. There's less inflammation in the tissues and in the cell. and your energy levels will improve because of the health of the mitochondria will improve. It's very simple. Take a teaspoon a day, every day, preferably on an empty stomach. C60 has to be in an oil for proper absorption. Now, it'll also help with with the basal layer of your skin. Stack this with resveratrol, and your new skin cells will improve. And so your skin will improve, and over time you will be looking younger, and you'll be slowing down that aging process. You'll have more energy, less inflammation, less free radicals. And over time, you will have more vitality. It's really simple. Teaspoon a day, every day. And if you want to improve your skin even further, stack it with the resveratrol. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. What we're going to start with is the Strait of Hormuz and its problems. So let's listen into live now.
That the U.S. plans to lift its blockade on Iran once Iran and Oman make a deal to restore commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, quote, without impediments. That is according to a U.S. official who spoke with the news outlet. Popping this up on your screen, this is Phil Stewart over at Reuters. Now, he says, quote, there is progress between Oman and Iran on the strait, and we expect a deal soon. That official telling Reuters, quote, once the deal is announced to restore commercial shipping without impediments, the United States will lift that blockade of Iranian ports. As always, U.S. action will continue to be performance-based and tied to Iran's implementation of its commitments. All right, so a lot to discuss here, as always, and I do want to bring in Asher Westropp Evans, journalist and Middle East expert, to break it all down for us. Asher, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us on this Saturday morning.
Josh, an absolute pleasure to be with you as always.
And first off, I want to start by asking you overall just about the entire situation, the U.S.-Iran conflict, Israel-Iran. There's a lot going on. So what has stood out to you overall about what we've kind of seen taking place over the last, I would say, several days?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the situation now really seems reflective of a stubborn and itinerant Iran who are determined to try and eke out whatever they can see for their population, for their leadership, as some variety of win, whether that be continuing to launch strikes against the surrounding Sunni Gulf states, whether that be trying to maintain control of the strait itself, refusal to budge on the nuclear program. I mean, that's what we're seeing a lot of coming out of Iran and their role here. Obviously, this move towards a deal is an interesting one. I mean, the idea of a Omani, Irani-controlled Strait of Hormuz, obviously a little bit different to what was originally envisaged when this war, started back at the end of February. But it does present some interesting issues around the idea of, Oman as a junior partner. I mean, let's be real here. Yes, they may be geographically in control of the other side of the state, but Oman is not a great military power.
This is setting in motion the nullification of the freedom of navigation with the maritime law. That's around the world. And Trump, Iran, Oman, none of them have the authority to nullify it. So this is going to cause problems with the freedom of navigation in the 9- line or the 10- line, depending on how you want to count it, because there is such a thing as now the 10- line in Asia. But let's just stick with the old nomenclature of 9- line. What about the Strait of Malacca? What about the other straits, the other freedom of navigation around the world? Trump screwed things up. This is the point I'm making. The silo thinking leads to an emergent property that actually causes lots of problems. Trump screwed things up. Trump made things worse because he couldn't get the job done. Now, it sets in motion that they're going to go, well, we're just going to start charging tolls, or we're going to charge a service fee, or whatever. And the United States, they're going to let this happen. Because think about this. If they didn't want this, if the United States wanted to maintain maritime law and support maritime law, if they left the region, if the United States left the region and they started charging tolls, then the United States would have to come back in and hit Iran, potentially even Oman. But if they negotiate a peace agreement where it's okay to charge tolls, then they never have to come back. And the United States can wash their hands. This is a problem. Trump screwed stuff up because he failed. And this is a classic example where when you go to war, whoever you're fighting with has to absolutely surrender. But because Iran didn't do an absolute surrender, Trump failed.
Themselves would not be in true control in any sense that they could keep Iran in check. So what the status quo would be around the Strait is critical. And of course, from an economic and trade standpoint, just getting that strait open and allowing the free flow of oils, fertilizers, and other essential materials through there, I think is just so critical to so many around the world.
I want to pop this up on your screen because we've been taking a lot of different looks at the reporting from Iran International English, and they actually posted this a short time ago, saying that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, of course, said in a statement carried by Iranian official media on Friday that foreign media acknowledged President Donald Trump's quote-unquote defeat in the war against Iran, crediting what it called the efforts of, quote, revolutionary media for the outcome. World media acknowledging Washington's failure to defeat the Islamic Republic are clearly speaking of Trump's defeat and self-created trap in the war against Iran, and are even admitting that the agreements reached were nothing more than an American surrender document in the face of realities on the ground and Iran's negotiating power. Again, that is a statement from the IRGC. So I have to ask you, because we know what's going on there over in the region, what is Iran essentially trying to do with their state media here as they essentially put forth this false narrative that they have won this war?
It's as simple as trying to find the off-ramp. We have depleted our munitions. We can't continue the war any further, or it seriously hampers us dealing with another crisis around the world. And the only way to save face is to allow them to do the tolls so we never have to come back to the region. Because if we force the issue and there's no tolls, but we leave the region and then they start to institute the tolls, are we going to move our Navy back in? No. And then the president will look weak, or a future president will look weak, depending on when they start to issue the tolls. Trump screwed up royally here, but so did the Pentagon. The Pentagon screwed up because we don't have enough munitions. We should have never been in this situation where we had such a low level of munitions ever, either in a peaceful time or even in wartime, ever. And that being able to make the munitions should have been much quicker. We should have had higher capacity to fill orders. So the Pentagon failed. Their war planning, their defense planning failed. The Pentagon failed, the generals failed, and Trump failed. And instead, there's so many people out there, especially on the conservative side, they go, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine. No, everything's not fine.
Hearing from President Trump that really the Iranian military has been obliterated.
Yeah, I mean, and this is
How are you finding the time to send over all these meeting notes?
I got a secret. I've been using Granola.
What is granola?
So it's an AI notepad. If you want to take notes during the meeting, Granola can fill in everything.
Yeah, I mean, and this is such an interesting point, such a key part of the Iranian propaganda machine. They are trying to convey this message that, again, yes, despite an entire cadre of leadership being wiped out, we're already on the B tier, the C tier leaders here. Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader that was killed at the start of the war. He is reportedly in critical condition himself, hasn't been seen in public since he was appointed to his role as supreme leader to replace his father. This is a regime that is attempting to do whatever it can to convey a sense of power and control. And we do have to be fair that here at some point they have refused to capitulate in its entirety. They are still at the negotiating table, and as far as they're concerned, and as far as the IRGC concerned, other top clerics, other top leaders throughout Iran, them simply still being at the table is their standard for victory. So we're playing against two very different standards here. When it comes to the US and the Western world and the rest of the world, the standard is military success or defeat. And in that question, there's no dispute that the US, Israel have really won the military field battle. But for Iran, their leadership simply continuing to survive in some form. I mean, again, whether it be the B tier, C tier teams that we're talking about here, as other leadership was wiped out, but continuing to survive in some form is a marker of victory. And that's the sort of propaganda that they're trying to put forward to exude strength, to exude control, despite the realities on the ground.
Yeah, and there's a lot of questions, as you mentioned, about Mashtaba Hamidi, whether or not he's severely injured, if he's even alive, and also if he's in Iran, because so many different reports have been circulating that say that he fled Iran a long time ago. So again, so many questions about who is actually in charge there in Iran. And what I want to do before we talk a little bit more about that, down on the bottom hand of your screen, I'm not sure, Asher, if you can see this, but we always reach out to our viewers. We want to know here live in real time your thoughts if you're watching us at home, work, wherever you're watching us from. The question that we're posing is, what would be the biggest sign of progress between the U.S. and Iran? And the answer is here: direct U.S.-Iran talks, the Strait of Hormuz fully reopening, a lasting ceasefire, so this would be in the distance, or some kind of nuclear agreement. Now, right now, 100% saying nuclear agreement, but we've only had a handful of votes because we just popped this up. Now, if you do want to vote, scan that QR code on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, or go to livenowfox.com/connect to cast your vote and hit the Vote Now tab if it doesn't take you there automatically. All you have to do is hit a button quickly, and you'll see those results are coming in real time. Where do you kind of stand on that? Again, direct U.S.-Iran talks, the Hormuz fully opening, lasting ceasefire, or a nuclear agreement?
I do really think, Josh, when it comes to seeing, a marker of success in that regard, I do tend to agree with your early voters there that I think the nuclear agreement is really the marker of taking this to the next level. Of course, getting the Strait of Hormuz is critical for world trade, for keeping commerce flowing, and for ensuring that Iran understands that while they may be hold a key geographic area, that they aren't in control and able to shut down the world's oil supply. Something we're already seeing, a lot of infrastructure being built to go around the Strait of Hormuz in the future. But I really do think that when it comes down to it, the nuclear deal is really going to be the game changer here. Let's not forget, when this war started, that was the key stated goal, and as far as publicly stated, we need to make sure that a nuclear-armed Iran cannot be on the table.
Nuclear-armed Iran and maintain maritime law. Why do we assume that it's mutually exclusive? This is insane. People are so idiotic with their silo thinking. This is what I mean about the silo thinking. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the digestive enzyme complex. If you're 40 years of age or older, take this. This is really important to reduce the load on your pancreas. They'll help you to digest your carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. You'll be able to absorb your nutrients better, and it has bromelain. And bromelain helps to break up proteins, but bromelain also helps to break up clots. Super important. Good night formula. Good night formula will allow you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep so you consolidate memory, detoxify your central nervous system, and you'll be well rested. By taking Good Night formula, you're going to be slowing down the aging process, and your brain function will improve. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. So take Good Night formula every night. Magnesium and zinc boosts up that immune system, but it also helps with brain function. A lot of people aren't taking enough magnesium, so take my advice, take the magnesium. Magnesium also increases the efficacy of vitamin D3. Ashwagandha root controls your blood glucose levels and your cortisol levels. Turmeric soaks up free radicals and brings down inflammation. Lignans helps the immune system, the endocrine system, brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. You can take them separately, but I highly recommend that you take them together. They're synergistic. And by doing this, you're going to slow down the aging process. It's one of my key pillars for my anti-aging protocol. The lignans, the ashwagandha root, and the turmeric. They'll help to boost up that immune system, help with your endocrine system, help with your cardiovascular system, and help with your brain function. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off. Click the link in the video here. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the great supplements that I offer. These are supplements that I take every day to slow down the aging process. They're very high quality and it works. You just follow my lead, you will get healthy. If you follow my lead during the trading sessions, Monday through Friday, you'll also make some money.
But we imagine how this war would have played out with the nuclear armed Iran. I mean, it's unfathomable, and it makes them untouchable. It gives the regime, in whatever form it survives, sort of an air of defiance and ability to act with impunity that we cannot risk. And we cannot risk this. But what we've seen throughout, Iran's response, not just attacks on U.S. bases around the region, we're also seeing these reports coming out of cyber attacks around the world. Even in the mainland United States and other parts of the world, Iran is a dangerous power that can exert its control in a number of different ways through espionage, cyber attacks, physical attacks. And if they would be nuclear armed and would act with impunity, that would be a serious danger, and it must be prevented. And that is one of, I think, the key goals of all sensible leaders out there attempting to actually develop progress from the war in the current state that we're in.
And let's talk a little bit about Israel in general. There on the bottom of your screen, you can see a live look over Tel Aviv at this hour. And where does everything stand with the Iran-backed Hezbollah terror group? Because there is kind of that agreement that's in place, but we're also seeing activity, because a ceasefire doesn't necessarily mean that the fighting stops altogether. You still have kind of a back and forth. So where do things stand right now between Israel and Hezbollah?
Well, it's an interesting question.
CNBC Pro, 24/7 access to market-moving news and interviews with 3 global live streams. Become a CNBC Pro.
Well, it's an interesting question, Josh, and again, akin to the way you see talks between Iran and Oman taking place over the Strait of Hormuz. At the moment, you've got talks taking place between Israel and Lebanon, the government of Lebanon, distinct from Hezbollah, we must note, taking place, which do seem to be making progress. There is talk of getting fair, third-party countries in to help negotiate and maintain any solutions that would be resolved. But obviously, as wonderful as it is to see the talks ongoing between Israel and the Lebanese government, the third party that's being left out there, and that's where I made the allusion to the other major conflict we're discussing, is of course Hezbollah. They are not being directly involved in conversation. Now, they seem to be abiding to some degree to the current ceasefire arrangements, though then again, as you say, there are movements being reported, periodic strikes, drone strikes that are ongoing, back and forth fire between the IDF and Hezbollah. And it's critical to know that Hezbollah is deeply against the direct talks between Israel and Lebanon, and threatens to undermine them at all points. And it is still the case that although severely wounded, Hezbollah, it appears on the ground, does maintain a greater military capacity, or at least enough military capacity to keep the Lebanese army, regular army, in check inside Lebanon. And that's where the real problem lies. If there's going to be a meaningful breakthrough, if the Lebanese people are going to be freed from under the yoke of this terror organization, this terror army, and the Lebanese people are able to stand on their own, they're going to need to take serious military action and take control back from Hezbollah. And that is a real challenge, Judge.
And we always talk about the 3 H's. You have the Iran-backed proxies there. That includes Hamas, Hezbollah, but also the Houthis. There was not a lot of discussion about the Houthis here for, I would say, several weeks. But now, over the past several days, you have more attacks coming in from the Houthis. So can you kind of explain where they factor into this whole situation as you talk about the situation between the U.S., Israel, and Iran?
Well, the Houthis are such a critical part of this story. I mean, they control the other side of the Gulf. You see the Gulf has 2 major pinch points. And from the other side, right there, being able to threaten to cut off trade that would go directly through the Red Sea and all the way up the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean, one of the other major global choke points of trade. The Houthis are there. They are exerting their control, obviously, in Yemen itself. but also going beyond and threatening Saudi Arabia. I mean, we just saw this new defense pact signed between Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Turkey, with one of the main goals there being to ensure that there is defense against Iran, its proxies, and others that might threaten that region. And it is really an ongoing threat. You know, the Houthis do not have the capacity for major escalation outside of their own territory, but they control such critical territory there. They are unable to be removed. The Saudis have been attempting for a long time through a long and bloody war that they've been fighting throughout Yemen, and that seemed to have simmered down, but now seems to be getting back, heating back up, and the Saudis are clearly very angry at the situation there. The threats to their commerce, trade, free movement, and of course the missile threats that come from there, with Iranian-provided missiles being fired by the Houthis both towards Saudi Arabia, in the past towards Israel. They present a real threat, even if it isn't one of a global scale.
Going back to Iran in general, we talked a little bit about Mashtaba Hamani. There's, of course, the question of where he is, if he's alive, a lot of questions there. So can you explain essentially?
He's probably incapacitated because of his injuries. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Super Strong Relief. This is a topical that will help to relieve pain. It works within 90 seconds. It will help with tension headaches, bruises, pulled muscles, arthritis, sprains. Just rub it in the area of the pain and you will have relief. This is really important, especially for individuals that have arthritis. It's Super Strong Relief. It's very effective and a very high quality product. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Also, get the structural nano silver lozenges for the allergy season, for the cold season, and also when you're cleaning around the home, in the garage, in the basement, or even in the yard. You can get it in orange splash, fortified with vitamin C, and Manuka honey. It has structural nano silver, so it's going to help to neutralize. Super important. And I also have structural nano silver toothpaste. Get a few tubes for your household. It has no fluoride. This will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with the health of your gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line, and with good oral hygiene, you're helping your cardiovascular system too. A lot of people don't understand that. Good oral hygiene also helps the cardiovascular system. Now, this toothpaste has the structural nano silver, so it's going to help to neutralize. Use it every day, but especially during the cold season. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
It's probably telling how the Iranian people feel, as they're not actually seeing the supreme leader and haven't seen him since that strike that killed his father.
I mean, it is staggering.
I tried every type of ED medication, Viagra or Sildenafil, and Cialis or Tadalafil. I know this works for some people, but I did not get reliable results. 4 out of 10.
I mean, it is staggering at this point that there is still the pretense that this man is in some capacity in charge. I mean, we've all heard of puppet governments, but when you can't even bring the puppet out on front of camera because of the state he's in, it does really question, what's the long game being played here. But it seems that the IRGC, who it seems by all accounts, all reports, are the ones really pulling the strings there and really in power, want to try and maintain some semblance of continuity. Obviously, the legacy of his father, Ali Khamenei, is so strong that just the name, the family name itself, carries that weight. Even if you physically don't have the man himself with the capacity to come on camera, on screen, to make direct statements, and his own is speaking through written statements, supposedly from him. I mean, as you say, Josh, the reports of the state he's in, some are saying he's in a critical medical condition. Others are saying he's not even in the country, that he's elsewhere getting medical treatment, having escaped. I mean, the man was always a puppet figure with no great clerical background, wasn't considered a great scholar, which was considered up until recently important when it comes to the leadership of Iran. He's not considered a great leader or general, although having fought in the Iran-Iraq War in his youth, but not considered a great leader. This man is a puppet and in name only the leader, and clearly isn't actually there, operating in front of camera as a head of state and functioning. So what the real situation is inside Iran, we don't truly know now. But it is clear that those who are pulling the strings are continuing to use that legacy for as long as they can, because it serves their interests. to show stability and generally attempt to prove that they still maintain control.
And it's interesting because essentially, as we mentioned, we haven't seen him. All of the statements that have been put out by him, or at least essentially attributed to him, have not been read by him. They have been read by the voice of a news anchor of some kind in that location. So, yeah, a lot of questions about whether or not he's even alive, severely injured. We've heard from the U.S. Department of Defense, also known as the Department of War, that he's hideously disfigured. So many different theories that are floating around. One thing I also want to talk about that a lot of people haven't necessarily focused on, that is the protest and the protesters that are being executed there publicly in front of people. What message is the IRGC, the Islamic regime, what are they trying to send to prevent more protests from taking place like we saw back in January?
Well, this is a part of the course and part of the playbook for the IRGC and for their proxies around the world and around the region. They make sure that any protest is absolutely summarily put down and put down hard because they recognize that at the end of the day, while we might be, there might be attacks taking place from the outside, from the US, from Israel, from other actors. At the end of the day, what's going to take down the regime is protest on the inside. So, of course, their most severe punishments and the most aggressive attacks are reserved for their own people. And we've seen that with the IRGC. We saw that with Hamas in Gaza. We see that with Hezbollah. Any protest, any internal dissent must be put down for this rule because it is an authoritarian one that is weak and fundamentally cannot abide any sort of protest. And this is exactly the danger, and this is why we saw such a strong response to those protests back in January. That actually, at that point, was still making it out into the international world, into international media to some degree. We've got some visibility on what's happening there, but we can only imagine the severity and the brutality of what's going on there now, as the remnants of the IRGC were what has managed to survive the onslaught from February, March, and April, now are trying to maintain its control. As we say, using figures like Mustafa Khamenei to justify what was likely mass killing, imprisonment. Reportedly, you occasionally hear about various actors being accused of espionage, spying for Israel, spying for the US and others. These things that drip out in a country that is still so locked down, so controlled, such a hidden enclave away from the rest of the world. What they're doing to their own people, worst of all, we can only imagine how terrible it must be and how the Iranian people must be suffering under their brutal regime, which, as we know from the past, only had, maybe a 20%, 1/5 of Iranians ever truly supported, and those numbers are speculatively high. The Iranian people do not support this regime, do not support its continuation, and yet they are being the ones to suffer most directly under their hands.
All right, Asher, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And I have to ask before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to add? Anything that you want to make sure people out there know?
All right. We're going to pivot over to AI revenues and the core business model of Anthropic and OpenAI. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotics, either the powdered version or the veggie cap version. Taking a good probiotic is going to help with your health. Good health starts at the gut. It's really important. With a good gut biome, you're going to be able to sleep better. Your skin will improve. You'll have more energy. Your memory will improve. You'll be reducing inflammation at the gut level. Your immune system at the gut level will improve. You're reducing allergies. You're also reducing leaky gut syndrome. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. Super important. Super important. It's the base for building good health. Olive leaf extract. It's dual purpose. It's going to help with your cardiovascular system and your immune system. It helps to bring down inflammation and control your lipid profile. Clarity factor, a great stack for your neural health. Brain function will improve. You're going to be able to get rid of that brain fog. You're going to be able to concentrate on tasks. And over time, you're going to have that positive neuroplasticity where your dendritic connections will improve. You're going to strengthen those neural connections. You're going to be thinking faster and have better memory. Take the clarity factor every day. Super important. And if you've been paying attention to me, it's a holistic approach. Taking the proper supplementation, drinking filtered water, staying away from processed foods, exercising appropriately, balancing exercises, stretching exercises, more resistance training than cardio, about a 60-40 split, 70-30 split, something like that. Learning new things, getting proper sleep. When you do this on a regular basis, this holistic approach will allow you to help slow down the aging process and reduce the methylation of your genes. You'll have more energy, you'll have less inflammation, you'll have a better immune system and endocrine system. And when you do this regularly, you're going to have compound effects that provides you longevity and vitality in your later years. So you're not so dependent on pharmacopoeia. So please take my advice, go to my store and get the great supplements that I use every day. It obviously is working. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. Ed Zitron, he is the go-to guy when it comes to the business models of the AI companies and the AI bubble. So it's really important to pay attention to what he has to say. But in a nutshell, it's basically revenues are less than expenses, and there's been too much of a build out of these servers to do these calculations, and the chips have a shelf life. So the replacement costs are also going to be a problem. So let's begin. Oh, before we do that, I also want to mention that the S&P 500 is closed at about 7,740, 50, somewhere in there, as of this recording. Be careful as we move towards 8,000. I have a year-end target of 7,800, year-end target for this year. So it could go to 8,000 and come back down. I put about 7% in cash and kind of waiting. Now there's going to be a resistance level at 7,800. It might break it, but as it moves farther up, I'm more concerned of the bursting of the AI bubble, and the drawdown will be more severe. Support levels are at 7,200, 7,000, and also 6,800. And as those, depending on how violent the sell-off is, those are key points to actually redeploy cash to get a better dollar cost average. So that's the thinking here. Now, if it goes to like 8,000 really quickly, then I probably would put another 5% in cash or cash equivalents. But don't close your whole equity account. Go around, at this moment, about 5% or so, 7%. If it keeps on going up, maybe go to 10%. And as it continues to go up, you might want to take a little bit more cash, put a little bit more cash on the sideline, because I believe that the AI bubble is going to happen. The bursting of this bubble is going to happen. And I've been paying attention to SSG, which is a shorting ETF of the semiconductors. Because when this does happen, and when it becomes violent, NVIDIA is going to sell off hard. And it's going to, right now it's trading at, the last I looked, it was trading at 222, but I think that was Thursday. I don't know what it was trading at on Friday. But around in the 200s. It's very possible when this bursts that NVIDIA is trading at 150, maybe even 125. All right, with that, let's continue.
So 70 to 75% of AI revenues of Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, and 7% of Microsoft's annual revenue total is from OpenAI. That is end of day stuff. Put aside how we all feel about AI for a second. You spent $1 trillion, you're going to spend $1 trillion or more next year. Why? This isn't even about AI anymore. It's just maths. Like, how are you making that back? No one has proven that there is a sustainable business. No one. We've not even proven there is a diverse customer base for compute. In fact, the only two companies that want to buy a lot are Anthropic and OpenAI, who can only buy it if they're given the money to buy it from the people that they're buying it. So AI revenues of these two companies. There is no AI industry.
Hi, my name is Isaac. I'm the tech report with me today as author of Ways to Edit and the host of the Better Refined podcast, Ed Zitron. Great to have you on as always.
Good evening.
So some
Of course, it's a chat GPT for Michelle.
Good evening.
So someone asked me earlier this week why the AI boom is actually an AI bubble. And I guess aside from everything else, it kind of comes up against the fact that customers need to be able to pay for it. And that price needs to be big enough that it justifies the trillions of dollars that are being spent on AI. So this week I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the myths that inference is profitable and that there is enough customers with enough money to pay for the end product. Let's start with the second of those two. Goldman Sachs estimates that around $5.3 trillion will be spent on AI in data centers by 2030. How big does the total AI customer base need to be to meet that spend? And then how far away are we from that?
So, all right, if they're saying 5.3 trillion, I'm going to guess because Goldman does this kind of nonsense, I'm going to guess they mean CapEx, like semiconductor sales plus revenue. So the answer is we're going to need at least $1 trillion in annual revenue from the companies themselves, including compute spend. Because I think there's about 323 gigawatts in planning, works out to about 250 gigawatts worth of compute, basically $2 or $3 trillion of annual compute revenue. So yeah, we have about, outside of OpenAI and Anthropic, a couple $2 billion of demand. So what I'm saying is we need like 100 times more, maybe more than that. And people think I'm being sarcastic when I say this stuff, but when you remove Anthropic and OpenAI, the AI industry is very, very, very small. We're talking a couple $1 billion worth of compute spend, and it's mostly just Jane Street funneling money to CoreWeave, which it invested in, and hedge fund traders pretending they use algorithms to make things better when in fact that they're just trying to pump these bags. I don't think people realize how far reality is from what they're promising. And I think that at some point it's just going to become so obvious and so suddenly obvious that they're going to look back and genuinely wonder whether they got hit in the head every time they read the news.
So something that you said just before we started recording was maybe one of the most consequential things that you have found so far is that OpenAI and Anthropic make up just shy of kind of 3/4 of all hyperscale AI revenue. And a great deal of that revenue is obviously coming from the hyperscalers themselves through OpenAI and Anthropic. How much of an illusion is the demand for AI, especially for those who would obviously point to OpenAI's 1 billion plus active users?
So I try and avoid being alarmist, but I get called it regardless, even though I'm just reading stuff. But so 70 to 75% of AI revenues of Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, and 7% of Microsoft's annual revenue total is from OpenAI. That is end of day stuff. And people are going to say, oh, well, they'll grow into it. It's not a toddler, it's a hyperscaler. So let's start really simple. 70% of Microsoft's AI revenue is from OpenAI, probably more. Let's just be really clear. That means that Satya Nadella has failed. Because it means that despite all of this noise, despite over $260 billion in CapEx, despite all of these big promises, the only real customers for AI compute at scale are two unsustainable AI labs. And if anyone was going to find out whether that wasn't the case, it was Microsoft. So think of it like this. They have tens of thousands of salespeople. They have the largest sales operation in software and infrastructure. They have, I think, the largest GPU infrastructure, maybe behind AWS, but I think they actually have more. They are the apex predator of software sales. And 70% of their AI revenue, and this is what Bloomberg said. I went and I found a bunch of analyst letters that ratified this 24 hours before Bloomberg. Half what shot. But just being clear, 70% after 4 years means that the demand isn't there. It means that the only real demand for all that compute infrastructure is OpenAI. It means that outside of OpenAI, the only other option is Anthropic. And outside of Anthropic, there is no one. It means that Microsoft 365 Copilot, despite them saying, oh, we've got 30 million people paying for it a month, is a single-digit billion business. And it means the other businesses, Foundry, where they rent, and by the way, they rent out OpenAI's models on there, so most of that revenue is from OpenAI as well. Any other, I mean, they have like 200 different co-pilots. It means that there is basically no revenue otherwise. And this is not something that changes over time, because think of it like this. Right now, the argument could be, well, the capacity isn't built, so the demand will just flow into it. You would see that represented in the remaining performance obligations, and you'd see it represented in big chunks. Because if you had millions of smaller customers who are lining up, they really wouldn't, they would have a gestalt that was much larger, but also you wouldn't make hundreds of billions of dollars from a bunch of small customers. This isn't Spotify. This isn't Netflix. You would have customers spending billions of dollars each on AI. Now, across these analyst letters for Google and Amazon as well, I found the same pattern. This is the craziest thing. UBS, Stephen Jew over there at UBS had an analyst note from June that said that 48% of the 2027 revenue of the entirety of Google Cloud, so not just AI revenue, was from Anthropic and OpenAI. That is, again, a disaster, because it's not just that AI failed. It's not just that AI does not have diverse demand. And people are going to squeal about this and say, oh, being a doomer. No, it's not that. It's also that the future revenue estimates and expectations set by analysts are contingent on the continued growth and spend of OpenAI and Anthropic. So it's not just, oh, the demand isn't there. It's that the future of these companies, the only way they will keep growing and meeting analyst estimates or expectations is if Anthropic and OpenAI keep growing and keep spending so much on compute. I think across the analysts I found, so Stephen Jew over at UBS and Ross Sandler at Barclays, the estimate for 2026 and 2027 was $124 billion just from those two companies, just on Google Cloud. So that's on top of, what, another 14, 15 billion on Amazon Web Services, if not more. Actually, no, it's 24 billion from Anthropic and 8 billion. Point is, we're looking at least $172 billion worth of compute spend from these two companies who cannot afford it, so the money's going to have to come from someone. So what I'm saying is, this is the future of hyperscalers. This is their future. And their future is one where growth is clearly slowing elsewhere, and where 7% of Microsoft's entire revenue comes from a customer that Microsoft itself has to pay. That Microsoft, well, they haven't invested in a while, but nevertheless, they have to build out the infrastructure. So the answer is, they've wasted the capex for short-term growth. They have shown a few years where they'll keep growing a bit, but eventually the air escapes the bubble and the money disappears. And it's really a question of when venture capital runs out of money.
I guess the question that
you had an idea. It started yesterday. What was it? Right. Claude remembered it.
I guess the question that comes up in my head with all of, I mean, there's a lot, but will OpenAI and Anthropic actually be kind of allowed to fail? It's not it's too big to fail, but if the hyperscalers are so balanced on top of these companies, is it more that they kind of can't let them collapse? Or I guess, is it more that they can't stop them from collapsing as kind of, unless an AI turns into something out of Star Trek?
I actually brought up the numbers in front of me because I think this is illustrative. So UBS estimates that Anthropic will spend what looks like 50 to... So OpenAI and Anthropic will spend over $70 billion in 2028. And that is on top of $300 billion of Vertex sales for Google, which is that people will pay $300 billion to rent out compute and rent out AI models in 2028. So the first question is how. The second question is, well, the answer to your question, I mean, is they can say, we will not let these companies fail. Amazon wired $35 billion more to OpenAI since we last talked, because Amazon, even though that was meant to be contingent on AGI or IPO, they still gave it to OpenAI out of the kindness of their heart, or knowing that OpenAI couldn't pay them. They can keep doing this dance. So unless OpenAI and Anthropic are going to be fed $200 to $400 billion every year in perpetuity past 2028, I don't think it's possible. I think the hyperscalers will do everything they can to keep them alive. I really do. I think that they are going to do everything they can because OpenAI and Anthropic represent the opportunity for hyperscalers to feed themselves money. And they do so in two ways. One, through directly, obviously, feeding them cash as venture capital investment. Google committed up to 40 billion this year, Amazon 50 in OpenAI, Amazon another, I think it's 25 billion in Anthropic. They will keep doing this. They're able to do it through direct equity investment, but also through building data centers. By building data centers, they are investing in their customers because what they're saying is, you don't have to pay for the data center capacity. We will build it for you. You'll notice that OpenAI and Anthropic have never been able to do this themselves because they don't have any money. So I think, putting aside too big to fail, I don't think people realize how difficult that is. They say, oh, Trump, everything's bad. I don't want to think too hard. Trump's going to bail out everyone I'm scared of because I don't want to think about weird things. Here's the thing. Unless we are going to connect the Federal Reserve to AI, which we are not going to do, and anyone who says we are going to do that is completely just, they are so dead. They're just so dead inside doomer-wise that they can't think rationally. I reckon the government probably gives them tens of billions of dollars at some point, maybe. I think they try at least. I don't think it'll be particularly popular, especially as we approach the midterms. But nevertheless, I think that you see these two companies drain the swamp of venture capital and limited partners and private credit. We already have a second $35 billion Broadcom TPU deal where Broadcom, how's it work? Google buys the TPUs from Broadcom, sells them to Anthropic, who then rents them back from a Google data center, making Google money twice. This is just, they're going to keep doing this stuff, but the problem is, well, other than everything I've listed, is Anthropic and OpenAI will also need the demand to need that compute.
Yeah.
Because it isn't just, oh, we'll pay the compute, we have the commitments, which they do. It's, let's say we're going to say they'll spend 150 billion a year in compute, which is insane. It'd be about 3 times what OpenAI is spending this year. It would mean that they would be roughly 3 times larger because it's mostly inference with a bit of training. So all of this is to say is the numbers are so big right now that people find it impossible to argue with, but they need to be so much bigger for any of this to work out. And I don't actually think it's financially impossible.
I mean, if we do assume that AI does become something so universally useful like the internet, and then that brings that demand, how long do you think the AI industry has to reach that point before bets being made on AI infrastructure come due?
Well, here's the thing with how the internet grew. The internet didn't turn into a product that everyone paid for. Like it was a platform for people to build stuff on that got them paid, or a way to build infrastructure to support the future of the internet, Amazon Web Services, for example. Just to be abundantly clear, by the way, the combined compute spend estimate that I have for OpenAI and Anthropic next year is over $200 billion, based on their own commitments. That's more than the entire revenue of Amazon Web Services, the total. So just as long as they can spend that, that should be good. But to your general question, they don't have any time left. The only reason that we are still humoring it is stock prices. The stock prices are so high and Nvidia has not faltered yet. These are the things keeping this alive. Reality is dictated by the price of stocks right now. It is nothing to do with the actual companies themselves. The reason that I'm screaming into the void still is because the stocks have not come down yet. Growth is still there. Numbers are going up so big. So everyone's going to say, oh, well, it's like the internet, it took a while to grow. The internet didn't grow in the way people think it did. It didn't become a product that then took people's credit cards. There were many, many, many products, but it took decades for the internet to become something which produced $100 billion companies. Nevertheless, it also didn't produce it in this way. It wasn't centralized around literally one kind of product, which is selling compute in different forms. It didn't come from very specific infrastructure that was the same thing every single time. It didn't come from a single vendor. It didn't come from transformer-based models and building horrible little harnesses around them. And it certainly didn't come from using compute to brute force hack people. It's nothing like it. And on top of that, the promises are so much bigger and they are so much quicker as well. The idea that Google's meant to be making $300 billion from just API sales in 2028. These are the estimates from analysts. This is what they think is going to happen. I think they're wrong. But if they think that's what's going to happen, this is the expectation that's being set up. We're $1 trillion or more into this. We don't have proof of anything. And the 70% story is so very bad. It's so bad because it's a sign that they built this all for nothing. Because if the idea of a great business is that you've got a ton of diverse customers that can all afford your services, then this is the antithesis of good business. This is entirely hype driven. I can go into more detail about why, but yeah.
The one thing that just I always come back to on the demand side of things is that even if you assume that there is the demand, where is the money to pay for it? There's not enough money in the customers' pockets to pay back the amount that would justify the capex.
Yeah.
Or am I wrong?
No, you're right. It's just, this is actually the silliest part of it all. There's actually a very obvious thing. It's been there forever, which is you spent $1 trillion, spent $1 trillion on these things. Put aside how we all feel about AI for a second. You spent $1 trillion, you're going to spend $1 trillion or more next year. Why?
Need help moving and unpacking? You could ask your cousin who she hired last year.
What movers did you... Sorry, are you still moving?
Or just use Thumbtack.
Why? Just why did you do that? What can you give shareholders? They're not doing more. They're doing the same amounts of buybacks. They slightly increase their dividend by 7-10% every year. Otherwise, what are we looking at? $30-40 billion of revenue. The estimate I saw from I think it was Wells Fargo, Michael Sheeran over at Wells Fargo, is that by the end of 2027, the entire Microsoft 365 Copilot thing will be about $10 billion annual revenue. That sounds like a lot. It isn't. It isn't. It's a third of the size of, I think, the quarterly revenue of Intelligent Cloud. So just a third of a quarter of a year's revenue from a segment. So just piss poor. But then there's the other thing of, let's say it was $50 billion a year. Great. You spent $1 trillion. Well, in Microsoft's case, $260 billion. Okay, you make $50 billion a year, but you're spending $300 billion. How do we work this one out? And the answer is we don't. There's not actually any working this out anymore. Some people will say, oh, they'll be kind, and they'll say, well, what they were doing was they were gambling on whether they could make AGI, right? Right. But if I rename my business Grinch Hunter and raised $100 billion to hunt Grinches, but never proven the Grinch existed, would you say I was an idiot? Probably. Even if I found guys who were kind of green-skinned, even if I'm a hairy gentleman, I'm like, look, there's evidence of Grinches everywhere. You'd think I was an idiot. Even if I somehow made $10 billion hunting these Grinches, I'd spend $1 trillion. What are you doing, Ed? You spent $1 trillion to hunt the Grinch. This sounds very silly, but it is way too close to what's actually happening. No one has proven that there is a sustainable business. No one. The only customers, so let's just take away the AI business for a second. We've not even proven there is a diverse customer base for compute. In fact, the only two companies that want to buy a lot are Anthropic and OpenAI, who can only buy it if they're given the money to buy it from the people that they're buying it from. They can't afford to buy. The customers of the business cannot afford to buy from the business. And when you remove the subsidized customers, there's no one else. There's not even the demand. There's not even a company that's like, I wish I could afford this, but I need money to afford it. Nobody can even think up. No one could even imagine how to spend that much other than Elon Musk. Elon Musk continues to do that, except no, he already sold his capacity. Or Mark Zuckerberg, no, already sold his, he's planning to sell his capacity. You also notice that Mark Zuckerberg, the only story that's leaked about Mark Zuckerberg renting compute to anyone is Anthropic. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it is? Why do you think it is every time someone stands up a new neocloud, it only sells to Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, Anthropic, or OpenAI? Is it because there's only two real customers? I think that's the case. And what's crazy is this is considered fringe finance. This is considered wacko finance. Like, oh, Look at this crazy person suggesting we built all this AI data set capacity for no one. All useful compute will be used, Ed. No proof. None. Look at CoreWeave, look at Iron, look at Nebius. These companies are doing single-digit billion businesses from the same customers. And it's just, when this all ends, we're going to need like a financial colonic to work out how this system got so blocked up. And because you ask, where's the money going to come from? It's going to exhaust the system to get there. It's going to be the network of limited partners who fund private credit and the limited partners who fund venture capital.
We often talk about the imbalance between how much people and companies are willing to pay for AI compared to how much it costs to run, obviously.
Before we get to the real demand of AI, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the omega-3. Omega-3 helps with your cardiovascular health. It brings down inflammation. It helps you control your lipid profile. It also helps to reduce the overclotting of the red blood cells. If you're 40 years of age or older, get the vitamin B complex. This will rev up your metabolism, help to protect your neurons through vitamin B12. And the first 4 B vitamins within this complex helps the electron transport chain, so you have more ATP, so you have more energy. Vitamin D3 helps with cardiovascular helps with the immune system, helps with bone density. Super important to take every day. Take it with magnesium for higher efficacy. And the structural nanosilver gels, you can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser called Renew. Either one will work for you. Now, it's dual purpose. You put it on a cut, it'll help to heal the cut quicker. You can use it as a daily skincare. And for the cold season and the allergy seasons, put it on your hands and lightly coat your nostrils. It'll stay active for 5.5 hours. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I have and get healthy. Use the link in the description, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Very good reason to talk about it. But how prevalent is the misunderstanding that generative AI scales like a typical software would instead of getting more expensive the more you use it?
I mean, Canva just had this problem.
After a huge new order was placed, we switched to AT&T Business Internet to keep up with the demand. We even brought on an intern to help. How are we looking?
You keep coming out upside down. Wow. I'm learning so much from you.
I can't help but feel like I owe everyone something. What about the people that owe me?
Just send a Zelle request in the Chase mobile app.
I mean, Canva just had this problem. The information and story about Canva saying, yeah, before when we had a bunch of free customers, they basically cost us nothing. But now we have free customers with AI, they cost us way more than our regular customers. And it's like, people still to this day will say, Yevon's paradox. Yevon's paradox. Yevon's paradox is when the cost comes down and people use it more. Well, the cost has to come down. That's the first part. Other than OpenAI's 80% discount, which was it was the price cuts we discussed a month ago. It's just what they did when they was terrified of DeepSeek, because DeepSeek's doing an even cheaper model that they're raising prices now. And so it's just the misconception I think most people have is based on the assumption that hyperscalers wouldn't be so stupid. Because really this whole era is a result of everybody believing in the wealthy and the powerful and believing that they can never do anything wrong. So think of it like this. From the outside looking in, if you look at 4 of the largest companies in the world and you see they're all spending 100, 200 billion a year on AI GPUs, what are you going to do? You're going to go, I got to do that too. I got to do that. Because look, they're the biggest companies, they're the biggest, most hugest, they have the biggest muscles I've ever seen. If I do what they do, I will be rich too. And because these companies have just been lying, they've just been lying, being like, oh, AI is boosting everything. I won't tell you what it's boosting, but the numbers inside I'm seeing will blow your socks off. Because of that, and because we have a brainwashed media, captured analysts, because we have people that don't push back, the outside world said, crap, I got to buy NVIDIA GPUs. If I don't do this, I'm going to fall behind. Because look, the largest, wealthiest companies in the world spent all this money. Now, they did so to support OpenAI and Anthropic and feed themselves money, but because they don't break out their AI revenues, because they don't discuss their revenue concentration. Everyone thought they're doing this because there's demand. There's demand at scale. They wouldn't do this unless they had that. And the answer is they would. The answer is they do it. The answer is they've done it. Even if they stop today, this is a catastrophe. Even if they halted all further capex to do with AI, this would still be a catastrophic waste. Because right now, their businesses are what, like Microsoft, I think, Bloomberg worked out as like $34–35 billion of annual revenue for AI in fiscal year 2026. That is $4 billion more than Anthropic raised in February. It is $31 billion less than Anthropic raised in June, I think. And it is it's around a quarter of what OpenAI raised in March, some of which was from Microsoft. It is pennies compared to $34–35 billion. That's $20 billion less than Amazon spent on CapEx in the last quarter. I think it's around what Microsoft spent on CapEx in this quarter. Like, it's just, we can compare numbers all day, but the answer is you are not filling this hole up with $34 billion of annual revenue. That should get these people fired. It is fireable. $260 billion, what you got for it? I have a business smaller than YouTube. And that's every single part of the business combined, and including my large, annoying son, OpenAI, most of that 34 billion is my annoying son, OpenAI. 70% of it, in fact. So not only has Microsoft not created a real business, not only has Microsoft failed, but the fake business they've made, the one that is just them shoving their own money into something, it's pathetically small. It's the size of a single segment in a quarter, except it's annual. Even if they doubled it, even if it was $60 billion a year, it would be a catastrophic waste. And again, getting back to the simplicity of it all, you spend $260 billion, $260 billion, and that's just through the end of fiscal year 2026, by the way. I'm not including the 60-odd billion they did this year already. I'm just saying, Microsoft, $260 billion, and you've created a $30 billion a year business, $35 billion. That's crap. How do you possibly make back the money, especially when you keep spending this much CapEx? How do you make it back? How do you make any of this back? Amazon's spending $220 billion this year. I think Barclays has their AI revenues like 20–30 billion as well. How are you making that back? This isn't even about AI anymore. It's just maths. Like, how are you making that back? Well, they're building the Industrial Revolution. Shut up. How are they making it back? That's the thing. Every argument I have is like, well, what if it works out? Who cares? Stop. Sundar Pichai. Sundar goddamn Pichai. 200 billion, I think they're doing 180, 200 billion in CapEx this year. Where is the money, Sundar? Why do you think all of them are being so squirrely about this? Why do you think they're all like, oh, well, our AI revenues, on the third solstice, the shaman told me that the AI revenues would be larger than my soul. And everyone's like, yeah, that's right. AI is the best thing ever. When you actually look at the hard numbers, it's completely insane. They should be roasted alive for this. They should all be fired. This is a catastrophic failure. And the only reason that people are not...
And this is the reason. He's right on the money with this. But if you listen to me and my show that I do every morning, I'm telling you how to manage through the crisis on the way up and on the way down. And I'm telling you how to manage the S&P 500 broad index and how to position yourself with the different tech stocks to start shorting through Tech S and through SOXS and SSG. But if you just pay attention to me, you'll be able to make money on this. The AI bubble is going to happen, and it's going to affect the stock market. And I would not be surprised if we see a 15–20% downdraft. But if you put 10% in cash at the right time on the sidelines, or a third cash on the sidelines at the right time, and once these support levels are triggered, these entry points are triggered, as the market's starting to sell off, you buy in because you have cash on hand. You're doing the Warren Buffett. It's a really simple concept. Just like It's a simple concept to slow down aging. Stop being a pig. Start having a better lifestyle. Take the right supplementation. Stop thinking that you need a physician. Most people don't need physicians. All you need to do is exercise, eat properly, sleep properly, take the right supplementation. Do your screenings. Doing screenings are really important. Cardiovascular screenings, cancer screenings. But besides that, and you have a relatively healthy, balanced life with the proper supplementation, you don't need physicians. You'll live longer than the people that are depending on the physicians. Because there's a lot of side effects when you're part of pharmacopoeia. If you're relying on pharmacopoeia, you're going to have problems later down the road. Dr. Sinclair mentioned on Joe Rogan just recently that the individuals are taking the GLP-1 medications to lose weight. Some of them are getting blindness. Well, maybe you shouldn't have been a fat pig. Maybe you should just look in the mirror and realize your health is heavily predicated on your lifestyle. Diabetes, heart disease, and most cancers are self-induced. Self-induced. A lot of people don't want to admit to it. Everyone thinks it's always, it's genetics or no, it's mostly your lifestyle. In most cases. Yes, there are a few, but everyone, you notice that everyone is special. Everyone thinks that they're special. They're an outlier. Well, if everyone was an outlier, then we would have a barbell distribution. We don't have barbell distributions in most cases. What we have is normal distributed systems where most people are in the middle. And there are very few people that are outliers. That includes diseases. The average person's diseases in the United States are self-induced.
Out. The only reason that people are not genuinely saying this is the greatest misallocation of capital in history is because right now their existing businesses have yet to give up the goose and yet to stop growing. And also those businesses are being puffed up for the compute spend of OpenAI and Anthropic. And eventually something's going to slow down. I think it already has.
And the cost is only going up with new models. Like inference is just getting more and more expensive. And is there anything OpenAI or Anthropic can do to make their businesses profitable, I guess is the question? Like, does going hard on efficiency rather than chasing benchmarks work? Or does it go back to what you were saying earlier? Like, it's just a gamble on achieving what you got?
I mean, I don't mean this sarcastically, but you have to ask them.
Right.
Like that's the thing. I don't mean that as an attack. I just mean it's crazy how they never get asked that question. you ever hear Sam Altman or Greg Brockman or Satya Nadella or Dario Wario Amade? Do you think he ever gets asked? No. It was like, Dario, tell me what your favorite ice cream is. But in all seriousness, we have two problems. First of all, I don't think they can make it profitable. I don't think that's possible. I think OpenAI, because there was the eMarketer report that said only $1 billion of ad revenue from all AI ads in 2026 and only $5 billion in 2030. Ads are not going to work. Okay, so you've just got a billion scroungers. You just got this billion people, weekly active users, most of which are free, just draining you, just using you like a cat scratch pad, and there's nothing you can do other than shut it down. But let's say this isn't going to happen. I genuinely think they're unprofitable. Let's say they made affordable inference with like a smidgen of gross margin, like 20% gross margin. Great. Are they going to be able to pay the $750 billion worth of compute commitments OpenAI has made by 2030? No. The answer is no. They actually need to be less efficient, the use of that compute. They either need to have more customers than now, so probably 3-4 times the amount of customers. They need to make enough money to pay for the compute bills, but
let me rephrase this actually. When I say, let's say $300 billion of Vertex revenue from Google Cloud, so that's where you rent out Anthropic's models, and I'm sure OpenAI will do a deal with Google eventually, $300 billion. That's going to mean that tens of gigawatts of data center capacity are going to need to be online, and then OpenAI and Anthropic are going to need them. That then actually will be the demand to need that much capacity, and then they'll need the money. So no, I don't think they're going to become profitable in inference, but profitability is no longer sufficient for these companies. It's not going to happen. I really don't think it's going to happen. I must be clear, but it is no longer sufficient. They must now grow within the next 4 years to the size of Microsoft. They need to be together. They need to be the size of the Magnificent Seven each. They need to be making $200, $300 billion a year in revenue, and they need to be paying even more than that in compute costs. This is what the stakes are now. These are the promises they've made. Anthropic has 300 billion. OpenAI has 750 billion. I actually think it's more because they've got Cerebras, they've got TerraWolf, they've got Cypher. I mean, they've got the 10 gigawatt project maybe in Ohio with SoftBank. They have so much, they've made so many promises. So it's no longer sufficient for them to just be regular ass companies. They now have to be huge. Let's do a fun scenario. Something amazing happens and OpenAI becomes a profitable company and they make a respectable $50 billion a year. They spend, well, I guess if they're profitable, they would only spend $35 billion on compute. That is not enough for Microsoft to keep growing. It's not enough for Amazon to keep growing. It is not actually enough to satiate the $138 billion 8-year deal they signed with Amazon. And it's not enough to deal with the $300 billion 5-year long one they made with Oracle. It's not even enough, I think, to handle the SpaceX one. No, SpaceX is, sorry, $1.25 billion a month. They're using that right now. But that's Anthropic. But the point I'm making is they could become more efficient, but more efficient means they're a smaller customer, which means there's less reason to keep them alive. This isn't it. All of this was very obvious 2 years ago. All of this is even more obvious today, which makes people even less willing to listen. Because the 70% number, when I tell people about it, it's the first time this has happened in a long time. Usually I'll post something and people try and roast me for various reasons. They'll find something I said 2 years ago and be like, look, it didn't come exactly true. The soothsayer I speak to every week was correct. You're a fool. But they very rarely just go, shut up. Or you're an idiot. Or they use slurs. That's the other thing. They have this time. And the reaction has just been like revulsion, like, ugh. What do you mean 70%? Liar, liar, liar. He doesn't believe, he's a non-believer. Run him out of town like Shrek. But what's actually happening is they realize that with 70% of AI revenues are these two companies, there is no AI industry. There is no other open AI. There is no Anthropic. Open source models are not going to fill this gap. Open source models are not going to provide more than a couple $2 billion of annual revenue for someone. Again, who is the provider there? Base 10? Again, is Base 10 profitable? They provide inference. Isn't this opportunity meant to be huge? They provide inference. No, don't know anything about them being profitable. Lightning, another AI data center company. They profitable? Nah, I couldn't possibly say. How about a CoreWeave? Oh, they lose billions of dollars. Oh, how'd that happen? Oh, it's because it isn't profitable. Iron, unprofitable. Nebius, unprofitable. Cypher, unprofitable. TerraWolf, unprofitable. The only way that some of these companies make money is selling Bitcoin that they mine. They literally could have just built more Bitcoin mining and made more money than this. Well, sorry. They wouldn't have made as much revenue. They definitely would have made more profit. But the thing is, the revenue here is just siphoning off of venture capital. The AI industry's revenue is just venture capital having all of its money siphoned out by the hyperscalers, and then that money is siphoned out by NVIDIA. And then that money is siphoned out by Micron and SK Hynix and Samsung. It is a revenue extraction vehicle sold as the future. And the problem is this is the most gratuitous attempt by the rot economy's growth at all cost mindset to push the limits of finance, to see how much money there is that you can extract. And we are going to hit those limits eventually. And once we do, we are going to see something very strange happen. We don't know how far the debt markets can go. We've never tried. We have never pushed them this hard.
This is the point I'm saying about the emergence of the curse. and how it will manifest itself in the economy. But before we continue, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the heirloom barley. This will help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. By doing that, you're slowing down the aging process. You're going to recover quicker after a workout. You're helping your immune system and your endocrine system. Gladiator barley is very similar to heirloom barley, but you get one added benefit, and that is it'll help you to build muscle. So do some resistance training, take the gladiator barley, but you'll also be detoxifying your body, soaking up free radicals through superoxide dismutase, and bringing down inflammation. And Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has all the vitamins and minerals that you need to help with building that base, to slowing down the aging process, but you get a lot more out of this. It has 68 nutrients. Take a look on my website, what's in this compound. This is a month's supply. Take it every day. And what this will do is help with brain function, cardiovascular health, musculature, energy levels, metabolism, help you to control your weight, help to control your A1C levels. This is something that you should be taking every day as part of your stack, just slowing down the aging process. It's very powerful, and you should be taking it every day. And you will notice the effects when you start taking it within 72 hours. You're going to get the steady burn of energy, and you'll have more desire to do things, and you'll have more vitality. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Like this has ever happened. We have never had private credit this low. Nothing in the dot-com bubble was like this. You had a bunch of companies buying other companies. You had a bunch of vendor financing. But the AI industry is actually more like, I did a premium on this week, the old school airplane leasing industry. GETTR.
I think it's very similar to 1873 crash with the truss for the railroads. A little bit of Enron with this whole special purpose vehicle, off the balance sheet, circular financing type stuff. And there's a little bit of Lehman, where, well, you can pull it, take it off the balance sheet. It's not affecting the main entity directly, and not understanding the contagion of the problem. And there will be this big drawdown in the equities when this all starts to collapse. We've wasted a lot of energy to doing something that we shouldn't have been doing. We've wasted a lot of capital on companies that it doesn't look like they're a going concern. And so because we did this so unproductively, we're seeing inflationary effects. Now, the Federal Reserve hasn't stated it explicitly, but they're concerned about the inflationary problem with AI. One, the bubble that is emerging in the equity market, the bubble that's emerging in the private credit market. And when you start seeing that this starts to affect the equities, and there's not a controlled demolition of this deflation of the bubble, and it's fierce, people will get laid off. And when people get laid off, they won't pay their mortgage. And when they don't pay their mortgage, it's going to affect the banking industry. Now, we're already at more than 100 times our GDP for debt. Where are we going to be able to get the money to bail out another crisis? We're still paying for Lehman crisis. We're still paying for the war after 9/11, the never-ending war in the Middle East, on top of paying for what's going on with Iran. And we're still paying for the crisis that we went through during COVID. What about Lehman? the Federal Reserve has a problem trying to unravel the balance sheet. Every time they really want to accelerate the unwinding of the balance sheet, Wall Street has tantrums. We can't afford another crisis. It'll affect mainstream America. There's a direct Microsoft, Oracle, OpenAI, all these companies that are investing in this in such veracity is going to affect middle America when it collapses. And so people are not paying attention to the contagion of the situation. Now, what Ed Zitron is saying is right on the money, but he's seeing it in a silo. The AI issue. I'm looking at these multiple silos. These are interconnected. And there's an emergent property taking place in a chaotic system. AI bubble. The munitions are depleted for our military. Military excursions in multiple theaters around the world that we can't really sustain. The over-indebtedness, the inflation problem that the United States has, the infighting that's going on between conservatives and liberals. You have individuals within the DSA that want to destroy the Constitution. These are all happening in concert. And there's going to be an emergent property that takes place that we don't fully appreciate that's really going to affect our country. Ed is doing a great job in terms of focusing on what's going on with AI, but it's beyond that. There's an emergent property that's starting to take place, and this is what I mean by the curse.
General Electric Capital, where they represented like most of the world's airline purchasing. Then in 2008, everything slowed down and a bunch of airlines died because it turned out that they couldn't afford to be airlines without leases. Point I'm making is, even that was very small in comparison. The mistakes.
That's why I think it's more like the railroad industry. But it's a combination. It's like the trust of the railroad industry. It's a little bit of the tech bubble. It's a little bit of Enron. There's a little bit of Lehman in it.
Making big promises. And that's why the failure will be so big. And I think the reason they spent all this capex is because they know growth is otherwise stopping.
You did mention ads a second ago, but I don't know, that's a bit of a non-starter as we did cover. Is there anything else that would cover bridge the gap between the inference costs and I guess being a functional business?
No, like the thing is, people. No, like the thing is, people, again, another boomer thing is, it's a mass surveillance operation. They're doing it for mass surveillance. They're doing all the GPUs are massive. No, stop. First of all, if you want to know whether the government has GPUs, they already do. Oracle. Oracle's first customer was the CIA. Come on. Like the government, or if they were going to do something with the GPUs, they'd have done something with the GPUs. Ads not going to do it. People are saying, well, they'll raise the price. They tried to do that in March and April. The reason they cut prices is because they started charging enterprises the actual cost of AI. And enterprise customers screamed that they were being pecked to death by birds. Every time they increase the prices, everyone gets mad. You should, every time they change your rate limits on XD Everything app, people start doing Aaron Sorkin speeches. They're like, I cannot believe these companies would turn on their customers after years of loyalty. After years of loyalty, I can't spend $8,000 a month in tokens for $200. That's not fair. I have been loyal to you, Mr. Ramadeh. And it's really funny because that's their future. They subsidized everything. They will have to increase prices or change things or just lose a lot of money. Or they're going to just cut prices so aggressively they run out of cash.
because they're going to claim they make it up in volume. You best hope that they found a profitable way to do inference. They didn't. They didn't drop that 80% because of inference. They dropped that because they knew their customers were going to run away. And at this point, when the largest brand in the business is like, we're too scared, we're going to cut our costs by 80%, well, that suggests that they don't really have any other plans. Sorry, there's also the $300 OpenAI donut device.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do that. It's this horrible, like, apparently it's a $300 like smart speaker thing.
It's beyond a smart speaker.
I've got to give them credit. It takes real ingenuity to come up with the worst idea possible, and they did. It's like the literal only AI product that the world has come to a consensus on it being both useless and unprofitable is Amazon Alexa. Amazon Alexa has lost Amazon billions. There's a Wall Street Journal story about it last year, maybe a year before. Billions. And OpenAI was like, what if we made that, but it was 6 times more expensive? And it lost us money constantly connecting to our services. It will that's the crazy thing as well. The only way hardware companies have started to recover margins has been bolt-on subscriptions. And Apple's services revenue is pretty much keeping growth alive, especially as things get more expensive. It's why every device you have is like, do you want premium plus $10 a month for some reason? We've gated all the useful features. It's because that's where the margin is. That's how you make sure you keep making money. And OpenAI did that, and they were like, great, now let's connect it to that, and then we'll start losing even more money, because they're not going to make money on the device. Hardware is insanely low margin, if not losing money. And if it costs $300, let's say they are making margin, and it costs them $200 a unit. I don't think that would be true. Still, they're going to have to make them in anticipation of sales. So if they don't sell them, that will also be a problem. Also, Johnny Ive is washed. He's been coasting off of his work at Apple for years. And what has he made recently? He made a pin for Prince Charles, or King Charles. And he made the worst looking Ferrari ever. He made like the Homermobile of Ferraris. And Sam Altman was like, let's give him $6 billion in stock. Let's go. I need Johnny Ive on this team. And then also a lawsuit happened with stealing stuff. It's also really funny. I don't know whether they stole anything, but the idea that they did, I'm not saying they did this just for legal reasons, but the idea that they did all this corporate espionage to make a worse Amazon Alexa, that tells you everything about OpenAI. It just honestly, it tells you they don't have taste. It tells you they don't have, and also when AI people say taste, they mean discernment. It means they don't have someone who's like, okay, let's look at the original Apple. Why did people like Apple? Yeah, it was a really key focus on products and quality of those products, of an aesthetic that was consistent across the products and really just reliable, rock solid products. And what has OpenAI got? Well, they've got the ChatGPT app that is now also Codex. That's also ChatGPT, co-work, whatever. And then they had Sora, but they got rid of that. And now they got device now, and and I mean everything looks kind of different, and most of the time is spent just posting on Twitter. And yeah, we're going to do a device now. Do you like this? Do people like this? And I want to meet the focus group. I want to meet the people that made this possible. But it's what happens when you're just trying everything and failing, just catastrophically failing. The browser, dead. Sora, dead. Device, probably dead before it releases. I hope it releases. I will give them money. I want to review this thing so badly. I'm gonna get a film crew. I'm gonna hire Robert Pattinson to play me and make fun of it. It's gonna be a delight.
I mean, with the kind of term AI, well, not AI in general, but AI generated basically becoming synonymous with something of poor quality. I was kind of in this vein of bad quality AI products. Do you think that we might start seeing enterprise customers just cancelling their subscription, their deals, or maybe not quite outright cancelling, but beyond sort of rate limiting, just being like, well, it's pointless to use it here. massive reductions and just like we're only going to have these limited areas which maybe it is useful in something?
It's already happening. It's already happening internally. I just spoke to someone before coming on this call saying they're a large company, a large auditor, and they have cut Opus models. So just one entire, the main thing from Anthropic, just like, not for me, thanks. I think we are going to see internally at companies token minimizing aggressively. It started small, like 1,500 is still too much a month. It's going to go to 500 and 300. I think we're going to see a pullback there. It might take a few months. And I also think we're going to just see AI products that stop existing on company. I think they're going to start retiring them. What they'll do is they'll be like, well, we're going to bring them back, but we're going to refine them. We're going to refine them for a few millennia. We're just going to take these in the garage, lock the door of the garage and not come back for a while. I think we're going to see a slow rollback. I also think elsewhere we're going to see more AI. I think as this gets more desperate, the desperation will cause people to do insane things. I think OpenAI and Anthropic are going to start making insane. This whole hacking thing is insane.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I think enterprises that are AI.
OpenAI, Anthropic. I think I saw an article also with Meta about escaping and vulnerabilities of their AI models and all this stuff. It's a show. They're trying to create demand. Oh, you need us to protect you. They're trying to create fear, this manufactured consensus in AI. The reality is that AI bubble is going to happen. Just pay attention, be prepared for it so you can make money instead of being a victim. There were too many victims that I saw during the dot-com bubble days and the Enron fiasco, and also victims from Lehman. Many people lost their life savings because of individuals in the banking industry taking risks that they shouldn't have done and use these financial engineering models and methods to try to reduce their risk, not realizing that they were creating a gigantic systemic risk. So if you pay attention to me, you'll be able to weather the storm. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. And I need your help. If you want me to continue doing this stuff, if you want to learn about how to navigate through the tumultuous times that we're going to be going through, you need to help support. And you can do that by purchasing the great products that I offer. Get the collagen. This collagen will help with your skin, your nails, your hair, your musculature, your bone density, and your joints. Really important to take every day. And collagen. Collagen will help to remodel those joints. Block the pain gatekeeper NAV 1.7. Reduce inflammation by blocking EP4. Reduce the erosion of the joint by blocking MMP3 and MMP13. And collagen will help to recruit the components that you need to remodel the cartilage and the cushioning of the joint. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen and stack it with the collagen. You can take them separately, but I highly recommend that you stack them together if you're trying to remodel your joints. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
They're going to just get more AI built. They're just going to force it more on their people, on their customers. Just go, you like this? You like it, don't you? Like the AI. Because once everyone accepts that this was a mistake, so many people have staked their reputations, their futures on AI being so much more than it is today. Not just like lying about what it does today, but I mean just like that in 2 years it will be AGI, or 3 months, or 3 minutes. It changes all the time. And stake their company's future on the idea that AI is the next growth engine. They can't admit that isn't the case. Or when they're forced to, things are going to be grotesque for them.
So just finally, given everything we've spoken about, I wrote this question. I think it might be a bit mean, But if you were in some way advising or in charge of OpenAI and or Anthropic, what would you be telling? What would you be doing?
Oh, I'd be telling him to raise as much money.
Disney Plus, Hulu, and HBO Max. The best in entertainment in one bundle.
The world was my secret.
Oh, I'd be telling him to raise as much money as humanly possible right now. I'd be telling him to raise 300, but I'd be telling him to raise literally as much money as they can get. Because right now everyone's insane. They need to be stockpiling money. Because the moment that this illusion breaks, it will fall apart. I would have told them to shut down the company years ago. I would just this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work at scale. I would have encouraged them both to not do what they're doing with revenues, to not do the weird accounting things they're doing. I don't think they're breaking the law. I hope they're not. But I would have told them to stop. But the big thing is, it's on a horrible capitalist level. Raise as much money as humanly possible immediately. Don't go public. Don't go public. You don't want to show that. I've seen the audited financials for OpenAI. They didn't want me to see those, and I don't think the public wanted to see it. I don't Anthropic filed months ago. Why haven't we heard about that? I heard the other week that they were doing very casual meetings with bankers. Well, this is the biggest, most hugest company in the world. Why so shy? Now people say, well, what's funny is on Twitter as well, you've got people who say, well, I heard Anthropic's at 100 billion ARR. This is no different to a Middle Ages feudal system where people are going around and said, I saw the devil outside of town. He said he's going to eat the children unless we burn all our apples. It's just ghost story stuff, mysticism. And it's so strange. And also, I would have told them to stop that. Just stop all of the mysticism. Stop all of this stuff about how, well, we think that Claude is mysterious, and it's like the thing that bloke said to the Vatican, where he was just oh, it scares us. Oh, it confuses us with the way it responds. Oh, go away, shut up. But these people want to both have the largest companies in the world and also be the elder statesman. And the thing is, they've been allowed to do a little bit of both because of the media and analysts that refuse to face reality. And in the end, they will be a laughing stock. I can't wait. I really cannot wait.
Wow. Hey, Zitron, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
I totally
If you
agree.
enjoyed today's episode, and
I totally agree with what he's saying. It's going to burst. But there's a larger theme here. It's not just the AI bubble. It's the sovereign debt that we have relative to our GDP. It's the anemic job market. The problems that our children have with learning in public schools. It's the issue with hotbeds around the world, in Europe, in the Middle East, and in Asia. The proliferation of nuclear weapons. The ability, using AI technology, to speed up weapons of mass destruction, especially in biologics and chemical warfare. We're not paying attention. There's a bigger issue happening. There's a curse happening. It's emerging. It's not just OpenAI collapse. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Max 35, or the Cleanse, which is 30 parts per million. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day, every day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow. What this will do is improve your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal barrier, help the health of your epithelial cells, and it will neutralize because it has the structural nanosolid. This is a protocol that I've been doing for over 6 years. A teaspoon a day, every day. And with a good oral hygiene, you're also helping with cardiovascular health. And when you are neutralizing, especially during the cold season, you're not sick as often. If you look at people that are sick on a regular basis 2 or 3 times a year, they age faster because it takes time to heal the tissues, even if it's something benign like a common cold.
But if you reduce the number of times that you are sick, you're actually slowing down the aging process. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. And make sure that you pay attention to my broadcasts. I have important information that I'm covering in real time. So you're making money, navigating through the tumultuous times, and understanding the emergence that's taking place of the curse that I keep on talking about. And to help to slow down the effects of this stressful world on your body. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.